Strong winds, yes.
Yes.
Very sticky. Okay, here's today's Kiddies Outing.
Today is Wednesday, the 14th of December, 1994. And today, I would like to out Bernard Manning. Mr. Manning is a pork-chop-faced man who, in his way, looks like a lady, though not a very pretty one. Nonetheless, this has not stopped him from being a fully fledged friend of Dorothy or fan of Kylie for as long as I've known him. Good luck to him, frankly. It suits him, and I love to see him go.
So the deal with Tony Parsons.
Tony Parsons.
Guy on the Late Show, writes for the Daily Telegraph, writes for Arena, and has written a book all by himself called Dispatches from the Frontline of Popular Culture. Our reporter, Peter Hamill, interviewed him. And watch out, by the way, in the interview for the name Biddly Bodley Wilson, a fictitious Victorian writer, who therefore
Does not exist.
What's up? Tony Parsons, welcome.
Good evening.
Now, your book here, Dispatches from the Frontline of Popular Culture, what a title.
Well, the title's actually Tony Parsons.
Well, it looks like that's the author.
Yeah, well, the idea, the original idea was that it would be eponymous, like the first album by The Doors.
But you were actually after the Peter Gabriel effect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think it's okay. I think it's perfectly valid to call books after yourself, because nobody's calling it from the front line of popular culture.
And actually, the way it's printed here, you could read it Dispatches Frontline Culture.
Yeah.
Because From the of Popular is in different coloured lettering, and it's smaller.
Yeah.
From the of Popular is the yellow stuff, so that's what we'll call it. How long do you think it'll last? I mean, do you think this will be in 100 years' time? People will say that's what it was like.
Yeah, well, I think it captures a certain period in history, in the history of the Western world. Yeah.
So you see yourself potentially as both Charles Dickens and Bosley Biddley Wilson.
Oh, well, hopefully.
What do you think of people who write for listings magazines?
I do think that there's a lot of coasters and there's a lot of cruisers.
It sounds like a cross between a naval battle and some disaster scene on a restaurant table.
Yeah.
And they tend to be fat because they're losers.
Exactly.
Do you ever listen to Radio 1?
Yeah.
What do you think of Simon Mayo's theory that anyone who commits suicide is probably gay?
Well, I think that's rubbish, and that's plain garbage. I think anybody that commits suicide has just run out of options. I don't think their sexuality's got anything to do with it.
But do you think it's a good idea to have pop music and little theories?
Well, old Simon Bates I always used to tune into. He was never averse to spouting off about the world, and I quite liked that.
And in fact, it's no coincidence you mentioned Simon Bates there, and he was one of the people who, just before he left, disagreed most strongly with that little theory.
Well, good for him. I think it was a mistake. I think Radio 1 did wrong as they threw the baby out with the bathwater.
And Bates was the baby.
Bates was the baby, and
so how do you feel about this controversial TV show that he's planning to do, kind of late night sort of James Whale thing?
Oh, well, I'll tune in and see what it's like. I mean, I like
Apparently
him.
In the pilot, he had a bloke who was a self-confessed cannibal who actually put him on the spot and made him eat a bit of cured flesh.
Really?
Now, is that the way that somebody, the baby that was thrown out with the bathwater should end up?
Well, that's not what he did on the radio, is it? I mean, I don't approve of people eating human flesh on camera for the edification of people that have just come back from the Dirty Duck.
Yeah. If somebody was on the word, they'd probably say, "Oh, I'll eat my leg."
Yeah. Well, they're
what do you think Bisley Bodley Wilson would have said about that in his time?
Well, I think it does capture. It does capture something, the spirit of the age. I mean, it doesn't capture it quite as well as it could do, probably. I mean, they had the Bobbit video. They claimed the world exclusive on that.
Now, that's something that Bodley Wilson would never have written about himself, but he might have alluded to.
No, but of course the world exclusive was actually on The Late Show. We showed the first clip of that. I mean, what I would say about The Word is that I've liked it from the start, and I still enjoy it.
But Bodley Wilson was really keen on things which had a place in popular culture and which stuck and which seemed to go on. And maybe he would have disapproved of The Word because it seems to be changing and becoming self-parodic.
Yeah, to a certain extent, but it still has its moments. It's still worth watching.
I suppose you're saying that Bodley Wilson would have given it a sort of cautious thumbs up then, would he?
I think so. I think he'd been tuning in when he was back from the Rat and Trumpet.
I know.
This bonus then. Yeah, said to Tony Parsons, by the way, Nicky Campbell wants to ask you a couple of questions. And then left a little gap. And then...
Hello.
Hey, Nicky, how you doing?
Oh, a bit of a rush, but got to ask you this. You're about 40 years old, approximately. Have you ever felt better?
Well, I feel much better than I did when I was like a wild 22-year-old punk.
And what I'm getting at here, you know, is I've got a few aches and pains, and I'm not quite your age. What about you?
Well, we're practically the same age. I think you're shaving her.
Well, okay. But you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, you have kept it quiet, but you've really been quite ill. How's it been?
Where did you hear this? I've never been fitter.
Well, I think you're putting on a brave face.
Oh, thank you, Nicky. I've never been fitter in my life.
So, Paul, so what happened? You went to the airport.
Yeah, we went to the airport, Heathrow, got the first 2 names done.
Yeah.
And on the return to get the second couplet done, I was rumbled.
So, okay, so you went up to the desk. You go up to the desk, you physically confront these people.
Confront the people with the names, yeah.
And this is to get my colleague just farted and left her on the bastard.
Yeah, they were fine. They were got. Okay, but the piece of paper was left on the desk with the names written on.
Okay, so it was. So you went up and said, my colleague just farted and left her on the bastard. And they went...
My colleague just farted and left the room the bastard. Please go to the airport information desk.
And people laughing there with female voices on, not you.
It wasn't me, no, I kept completely quiet.
So you say, this goes out over the airport and other passengers guffaw as they go past.
That's absolutely right, and this is part of the reason why they banned me from more. They said they got complaints from people who are in the airport about the ones that we've done previously.
So you went up to the desk again, and then what happened?
Went up to the desk again, they looked at the piece of paper with the 2 new names on, and said, there was a moment's pause. Then they got the original piece of paper with the first 2 names on, compared the handwriting and thought, aha! So she picked the piece of paper up and went to the back of the room where her other colleagues were, and she started going things like, just farted and the bastard and took a business tea and stuff like that. So they obviously linked them all together, saw that they made...
Well, then he came back and said, excuse me, you seem to be asking us to say I took a piss in his tea.
It was a she, yeah. She came back and she said, we can't read these.
And you said...
I said, why not? And she goes, I think you know why.
You were 3-year-old.
Absolutely.
And then did you claim... that you know, it was for a good reason?
By this time, she was surrounded by about 6 of her colleagues, all glaring at me, so there's no way I could back out. I just came clean. I said, you've got me.
It's for a radio show, and it's a good deal, isn't it?
I said that it's for a radio show. Come on, where's your sense of humour? And they said, any more of these and we'll call the police.
So, rather than give up there on the spot, you then went to Gatwick?
Yeah, I thought this can't happen, so I went to Gatwick, yeah.
Okay, and so the second half of the message is in a different voice, but
That's
it was
right.
read out.
It was read out, yeah.
And it goes...
Stilla got my own back and took a piece in his tea.
Stila got my own back and took a business tea to the airport information desk.
Took a piss in his tea. Spellings... Paul, so let's do the one that came out in a clear bell-like female voice, and that was my colleague Jess Farted.
My colleague Jess Farted,
Okay.
certainly. It's M-A-K-O umlaut L-I-G, my colleague. And Jess Farted is J-E-Z-V-A-H-T-E-D. Jess Farted.
And left the room the bousted.
Left the room, the bastard. L-E-V-D-A-R-H-O umlaut again, E-M. That's left a room. And the bastard is D-A-B-A-H-Z-T-E-D.
Okay, so that's what happens if you want to get cautioned, if you want to get a legal caution or get threatened with police action, then go up to an airport desk anywhere and ask for these names to be read out. Of course, if you do it abroad, which is now where we're going to have to go from now on, then you won't be troubled because they won't know what you're doing.
My colleague just farted and left the room the bastard. Please go to the airport information desk.
if you're interested in the homeless and the plight of the homeless, watch out all between now and Christmas, because Alan Rickman's around. He's touring from town centre to town centre. Basically what he does is he visits a shopping centre, he sits there in a wheelbarrow and waits for people to come up to him and start pushing him around, and then as they push him around, he talks to them very frankly and caringly about the homeless.